Ethan Parker was no stranger to being called a nerd. A 12-year-old with glasses too big for his face and a backpack that seemed to contain the contents of a small library, he spent most of his time tinkering with gadgets or lost in books about the universe. His parents, archaeologists who traveled the world, had recently returned from an expedition with an unusual artifact. It was a small, ornate device with glowing etchings that pulsed faintly when touched. Ethan, ever the curious mind, couldn't resist taking it to his room to study it further. Late one night, as the rest of the house slept, Ethan sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, the artifact before him. He carefully adjusted its dials and pressed its smooth, glowing surfaces. Suddenly, the device began to hum, the room filled with light, and before Ethan could even comprehend what was happening, he was enveloped in a blinding flash. When the light faded, Ethan found himself in a place unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky was a swirling canvas of purples and blues, dotted with 3 moons of varying sizes. Around him stretched an enormous garden, lush and alive, filled with plants that glowed softly in the dark. Some of the flora seemed to shift and move, as though aware of his presence. Ethan's first instinct was panic, but his awe quickly overtook his fear. Unbeknownst to him, he was being watched. From a high tower within the alien mansion that bordered the garden, Princess Zaleria observed him through a shimmering holographic display. She was intrigued by this strange creature that had stumbled into her world. It was not by chance that Ethan had arrived. Zaleria had been experimenting with an ancient device, a counterpart to the one Ethan had been tinkering with. It had been an impulsive act of curiosity, a brief attempt to connect with the mysterious lost realm her advisors spoke of. Now, the device had brought her an unexpected visitor. Ethan wandered deeper into the garden, marveling at the plants and their odd behavior. He tried to reassure himself, speaking aloud. "Okay, Ethan, this is probably just a dream. Or maybe a holographic simulation? Yeah, that makes sense. Advanced tech. Nothing to be scared of." As he moved, he realized the garden was anything but ordinary. The first obstacle he encountered was a tangle of vines that seemed to come alive, blocking his path. When he tried to step over them, they lashed out, wrapping around his legs. Panicked, Ethan racked his brain for a solution. Then, an idea struck him. Photosynthesis. Chlorophyll. Carbon dioxide exchange. He blurted. To his amazement, the vines loosened their grip and retracted, as if satisfied with his response. Ethan's heart raced, but a small smile crept onto his face. "Okay, so it likes science. I can work with that." As he continued, the garden presented more challenges. He found himself in a glowing maze where the walls shifted whenever he hesitated. At first, he felt hopelessly lost, but he began to notice a pattern in the way the paths shifted. Using his logical reasoning, he navigated through the maze, emerging on the other side with a newfound confidence. Later, he encountered a flock of small, luminous birds perched on a tree. They sang melodies that stirred memories of his childhood, snippets of lullabies his mother used to hum and the theme songs of his favorite cartoons. For a moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming homesickness. But as he listened more closely, he realized the songs were guiding him, directing him toward the center of the garden. At the heart of the garden stood a massive tree, its branches shimmering with an otherworldly light. Beneath it sat Zaleria, her silver hair catching the glow. Her translucent wings, folded behind her, gave her an ethereal appearance. Ethan froze, unsure of what to do. He had never seen an alien before, let alone one that looked so regal. Zaleria smiled gently, gesturing for him to approach. "You've done well to make it this far," she said, her voice melodic yet commanding. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. Hi. Are you an alien?" She laughed, a sound that was both musical and warm. "I am Zaleria, princess of this world. And you, little human, are not where you are supposed to be." Over the next few hours, the two talked. Ethan, though nervous at first, couldn't help but be curious. He asked questions about her world, her people, and the strange garden. Zaleria, equally intrigued, learned about Earth and Ethan's passion for science. She was fascinated by his boundless curiosity and his ability to see wonder in everything. Ethan, in turn, learned that the garden was a place of trials, designed to test the worthiness of those who sought the ancient tree's knowledge. Many had tried to navigate it, but few succeeded. Zaleria marveled at how someone as young as Ethan had made it through, his quick thinking and problem-solving skills surpassing those of adults from her world. Their bond grew as they shared stories. For Zaleria, it was a rare moment of connection, free from the constraints of her royal duties. For Ethan, it was the adventure of a lifetime. But their peace was short-lived. The royal guards, alerted by Zaleria's advisors, stormed into the garden. They were alarmed to find a human an inferior being, in their eyes so close to the princess. The captain of the guard demanded Ethan's immediate capture, accusing him of being a spy. Zaleria stood protectively in front of Ethan, her wings flaring in a show of defiance. "He is not a threat," she said firmly. "He is here because I brought him here." The guards hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with challenging the princess. After a tense standoff, they reluctantly lowered their weapons, though their disapproval was evident. Knowing Ethan could not stay, Zaleria led him back to the device that had brought him to her world. She explained how to activate it, ensuring it would safely return him to Earth. Before he stepped through the portal, she handed him a small, glowing crystal. "This will help you," she said. "Your mind is extraordinary, Ethan Parker. Never stop seeking knowledge." Ethan nodded, clutching the crystal tightly. "I'll never forget this. And maybe I'll find a way back someday." With a final smile, Zaleria watched as Ethan stepped through the portal, the light enveloping him. When Ethan woke up, he was back in his room, the glowing crystal still in his hand. His parents were none the wiser, assuming he had fallen asleep while reading. But Ethan knew the truth. As he placed the crystal on his desk, he made a silent promise to himself: he would unlock its secrets and one day find a way back to Zaleria's world. Far away, under the alien skies, Zaleria stood beneath the ancient tree, looking up at the stars. She whispered softly, "Until we meet again, little human."